Hi, so today I wanted to talk about some of my least liked elements and tropes or elements in romance novels. And somebody's comment on YouTube like started the ball rolling on this subject matter and why I wanted to make the video. But I'll comment on that when I get to that. When I made a list of the specific things that I don't like, and it's one, two, three, four specific things. Anything that you like or dislike within, feel free to comment anything you like or dislike within those genres. If you agree with me or disagree with me, if you have suggestions for books that are what you think I'm looking for or you think are great examples of what I hate, any of that would be great. I know YouTube people don't really respond. Like the percentage of people who respond to videos versus like, typing or liking versus the ones who watch is like super low. I think 1 in 1,000 people who watch a video will actually make any response to it of any kind, engage with the video. So I know it's unlikely, but I am going to put in some recommendations. I'm going to put a list of books at the text for this video, and I'm not going to tell you what the books are, like which genre they are examples of. So that way, like for instance, if I put Secret Babies. No, that's a bad example. If I put sports romances in the babies and sports romances into my discussion of something I hate, and I told you, when I told you about that subject, I also mentioned Nobody's Baby But Mine, then, you'd be pretty disappointed when you found out right away that was what the book was about. Or if it was a surprise and you found out about it in the middle of the book, it'd be like, oh, well, I already knew about it. There's no element of surprise. So that's why I'm going to have a list, and they're all going to have to do with what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to ruin the surprise of which one is which. So, okay, here we go. The first one that really gets me is, well, I think this one is a pretty obvious one, and there is a little bit of a subgenre, but people of color. There are very, very, very few people of color who are main characters in romance novels. It's almost always white people. And there's a subgenre, like I mentioned, where there's African-American romance, but there's it's a really, really tiny section of romance compared to how vast the genre is. And specifically, I'm Mexican, so I have read like maybe 2 or 3 novels where the main character, one of the main characters is Hispanic, and in both of them their race really didn't factor into it. Because I don't recommend it, I'll go ahead and mention that one of them is called Hands Down. That one talks a little bit about abuelita and somewhat gives an example of Hispanic culture in the sense that they talk about food, but very, very little. So, okay, that's the first one. The big one that I want to talk about or start off with is virginity. Obviously, everyone is a virgin at some point, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is really super common for romances to have virgin heroines. And it's really also common that the guy is really into the fact that she's a virgin and wants to be the first and like gets off a little bit on the idea that he's the first. It bothers me so much because being Mexican, that's a very Roman Catholic country. My mom was a very, very devout Roman Catholic. And for me, there was a huge stigma attached to not being a virgin when you got married. Like if you are not a virgin, you can't wear white on your wedding day. And oh my gosh, you got married wearing something that wasn't white. She must not be a virgin. It was looked down upon. And my mom, like specifically, people of my mom's generation specifically are like proud that they were virgins, and they saw it as a, very, very moral thing. And, it's been a long time since the sexual revolution. And I think women should embrace their sexuality and not be shamed for not being virgins. And so specifically, I was going to talk about how worldwide, specifically in my family, I know of examples of people where they got married, like the guy married the girl because she was really young because she was a virgin. He wanted a virgin. And that is so gross to me. And like, those were not happy marriages. Like I know in my family, the one that I know about was a terrible marriage, and she suffered a lot. And I think about that, and I think about like, wow, my great grandmother was raped by my great grandfather. That that was it was not that it was it was probably non-consensual, the fact that she didn't want to marry him in the first place, but it was definitely statutory rape. She was way younger, and he wanted her for her virginity, and it's so gross. And I know another person's family in where the guy he married a girl who hadn't gotten her period yet, and the fucking priest that married them said, "I'll marry you, but you can't have sex with her until she gets her period." So imagine how fucking young that poor little girl was for her to be having sex right after she got her period. That's so gross to me, and it makes me cry. It's horrible. So, and this is just Mexico. This is just people I know. I'm an older person, so these are people of an older generation. But Mexican culture is very macho, and virginity is still a thing. The Catholicism is still a thing, and it's gross. And it's not just it's not just in Mexico that things like that are going on. I think general mutilation that happens in Africa has a lot to do with the idea of preserving a girl so nobody but the guy who marries her can have her virginity or ever have sex with her. And I know, like in the Middle East and places like India, there's people get killed when the girl's not a virgin. The idea that the girl's not a virgin makes her of way less value in men's opinion, and that's just I had hoped we would move. I would hope that we have moved on from that, and I don't want to read about people who idealize virginity. So that's the first one, the first major category I wanted to talk about. The next one is so prevalent, it's basically unavoidable. Almost every book has an alpha male hero, and I think it's related to the whole Mexican thing where macho culture, basically the man he's the powerful one in the relationship, and the woman is lesser. And so for me, when there is an alpha male, a lot of times it reminds me of the kind of behavior that is deemed to be okay in my culture or subculture. And it's just like, it's a forceful personality. Some people can like it and stuff, but can you not write about a woman who has a forceful personality and the guy likes it? I mean, how it happens in the world. Why can't that be an attractive thing that I want to read about that? Am I the only one? So yeah, alpha males, and especially, it's really, really common for the guy to always want to dominate the woman in bed and for the girl to love it. And it's like, yes, I can imagine that that's probably more common than the guy wanting to be dominated by the woman, but it's still way too common. I really think that we should have moved on from the stereotypes and be able to read and write about women who have strong personalities and guys who are okay with that. I think The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is basically it starts off with that premise where a guy is obviously lesser than a woman, and he can't deal. And that was something that was going on in the 60s in that show, but it's something that it's still the case now, where there's very little content of stuff where there's a lot of content where the guy has a big mission and the girl goes along with it because it's for the greater good. But there's very little content about the girl being a big leader and having a greater purpose, and the guy goes along with it for the greater good. And so that's what I would like to see more in romances. I feel a lot of times the way the alpha males are written, they're so aggressive that it borders on abusive to me. But that's another big category. So virginity, alpha males. The one that got me started on this video, happy pregnancies. So in romance novels, when people get pregnant, even unintentionally, they're always happy about it. And it's like, it's so far removed from real life that I feel like it needs to stop. I mean, I can understand that there's plenty of times when you're surprised by a pregnancy and it is good news, but the idea that that can be negative and it can throw your life for a tailspin, and you might start off negative and you end up being okay with it. I think that would be interesting and fine to read about in a romance novel. I don't think it is, taking you out of the happiness and escape of reality that happens when you read a romance novel. So yeah, somebody in one of the books that I just finished commented about the fact that very end of the book, the girl turns up pregnant and it's like, oh, we're so happy about it. And in this book, the girl was a math major. She wasn't done with her degree. And it was only a few months very recently into the future. So it's just like, so she's going to have a baby. So what's going to happen to her career? She's still going to go to graduate school. Is she going to get a job that has, that where she's going to be able to be a mom and the guy's going to be a dad? Yeah, the fact that she's having a baby is so great. And they don't talk about anything about the fact that having a baby really, really changes your life. You're not going to have a baby and it's going to be something light that is, that's always going to be happy. There's good and bad things about being a parent. So related to that, abortion. Even when oftentimes these books have pregnancies that occur, because they're romance novels, of course. So the main story is about a guy and a girl, or most books are. So when there's a pregnancy, I have read hundreds of books, or read or listened to so many books, and abortion has very, very, very rarely come up. And for me, that is such a negative. I feel like it is a perfectly moral thing to be considering abortion, that, if your pregnancy is not something that you are happy with, that very nice, good people get abortions, and that should be normalized and not stigmatized in our culture. So in an ideal world, nobody would ever accidentally get pregnant and there would be no abortion maybe, but it's the fact that you're escaping reality with romance doesn't mean that it's representing a totally ideal world, because that gets too far away from the reality. So when I read a book and there's an accidental pregnancy and there's no thought or mention of abortion, or there's only a passing one where the girl's like, oh, I wouldn't consider it. It just strikes me like, oh, God, this again. Can we never have a story that incorporates it? I'm not saying that I want that for everything. And of course, there's a whole genre of books with pregnancy as a big element. But mentioning it once or twice, I don't think is going to be a bad thing. I think I would enjoy that as a feminist. Okay, so another thing related to books being an escape and an idealized version. In books where the guy is rich, he is always a billionaire. He's always a handsome billionaire. And God, why? Why in the world is this a thing? Billionaires, do you understand how much more money a billionaire has than a millionaire, than a normal person? The billionaires in this world are, for the most part, horrible people. They're people who have taken the capitalist systems in the world and abused and taken advantage of that, and probably abused power and people in order to obtain that amount of wealth. And so when I think of a billionaire, I don't think of a good thing. I think of a bad thing. What I don't understand is why? Why does everyone have to be a billionaire? Why is millions of dollars is still a good amount of money? It's still enough that people would be really, really comfortable and happy and in an ideal situation with millions. I don't understand why it has to be billions. It's so stupid to me. And so much so that, in fact, most of the time when I read a book with a billionaire in my mind, I just change it to millionaire. And I feel more content with the idea of it being a millionaire versus a billionaire. Because, like I said, in my opinion, if you're a billionaire, you're probably a terrible person. That's just me. Okay. Final thought or thing I don't like is sexual violence. And that's really not a common thing, but I was going to ask if anybody responds to or cares about this video. Is that always the case? In a book that's labeled dark, because every single book I've read that's called a dark romance, the guy and the girl have been in a situation which I would compare to rape. It's very, very sexually aggressive, and it makes me uncomfortable to read that. I don't enjoy that. And yeah, it's just, I don't want to read about that. I know back to escaping reality in an ideal world versus an unideal world. In the ideal world that I go to romance for, I don't want to hear about that. I know it happens in real life, but it's not something that makes for something I enjoy. So yeah, that was everything. I will leave my list of suggestions in the bottom in the text, like I said, and hope to hear from somebody. Hopefully somebody will read this and respond to this, will watch this or respond to this video in some way. And if not, at least I got to rant and talk about the things that bother me about romances. Thanks. Have a good day.